A break? A break in the middle of a murder trial? I did not know that was a thing. I've been watching the YNW Melly trial, and I've been seeing some crazy stuff. Highs and lows, big points by the prosecution, big questions still remaining in the case, but apparently we're taking a break for a couple days. And I was thinking, oh, well, I'm not gonna be able to get any new information. But you know what? That is not true, because I have a big privilege today. I have KB Goes Live on the channel today. KB is one of those guys who's been covering the trial, and he's been doing it like nobody else. His videos are fantastic. I talked with him for quite a while, and I want you to see what we talked about. It's right here. Because I have questions for you, because one of my operating theories is that lawyers don't think like regular people. Like we go to school and they like break us down so that we don't think about human problems and human tragedies like regular people. And it's one of the reasons that people hate lawyers. And it's also one of the reasons that they need us, because we do like kind of remove ourselves from the horror of a situation and think of it kind of analytically and inhumanely. I love your coverage of the trial. This trial is crazy. It is actually a crazy trial. At times it feels like someone who writes questions for a law school exam put this trial together, because the facts are so crazy.
Right. Yeah, it's been all over the place from day one. From the very beginning of this thing, I said, wow, this is probably going to be crazy. I mean, as soon as I seen on the opening statements, pretty much the next day, I seen the way that it was unfolding, and I said, this is probably going to be like a highly dramatic trial.
Well, it's a perfect trial to watch in some ways, because there's good evidence on both sides, or there's good evidence and also missing evidence. Let me ask you a question. Is that Melly's phone, and does anyone else use it?
It's 100% Melly's phone.
Okay,
it's 100% Melly's phone. I feel like they've established that fact so many times over that at this point, if you don't think that it's Melly's phone, I really don't know how anybody can make it clearer that it is his phone, you know?
I'm going to look, I agree with you, but I'm going to put my lawyer hat on for a minute and push back, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because if the defense is serious about the idea that someone else might have had his phone that night, which I think is critical to their defense, like they need his phone to not be his phone. Why?
Well, because if it's not his phone, they can't put him on the scene, basically.
Right, but if it is his phone, he's going down, right?
Right, because there's so much tied to the phone, the messages, and that's something that I've actually noticed throughout this trial. I feel like a lot of it, aside from the forensic, testimony that we've seen, I feel like a lot of it is really character based. Like they're going for the way that Melly is, the way he talks to his mom, the way he interacts with his friends, the things that he says. I feel like a lot of it is kind of character building for the jury to kind of say, this is the type of person he is. It's probably not out of the realm for this type of person to commit this type of crime. I feel like they're trying to tie that in. I feel like it's almost just as big as a part of this case as all of the actual evidence that they laid out.
And you probably know that juries are not supposed to be presented with evidence that is meant to just make you think that the dude is a bad guy.
Right.
But sometimes if you actually are a bad guy, that stuff kind of creeps in. Like if you send out a bunch of messages that say, I don't care if you murder my mom.
Right. What a mind-blowing text message for him to send to anybody. I could not imagine sending that message about my mom in any universe ever. I can't imagine. And the fact that they got to read that in front of the jury, him saying to his friend, if y'all did, kill my mom, basically I would be okay with it. And we would still be friends at the end of the day. For me, that says so much about somebody's character.
Wow. That's tough right there. You say you can't understand why someone would say, oh, that's not Melly's phone, or he didn't have his phone that night, or whatever. And I get it, but I'm telling you, when it comes time for Melly's lawyers to call witnesses and put evidence on, I guarantee you, they're going to put on a bunch of evidence that at various times other people have used his phone. It's not like the prosecutor has put the entire universe of all of Melly's messages in front of the jury. No, they're picking and choosing all of these times where he says, here's my number, where it's obvious that he's using the phone. It would be really just stupid for his lawyers to go to the jury in the opening statement and say, well, yeah, he used the phone some, but lots of other people used it, and then not have evidence to show that other people use that phone. So I agree with you right now. It looks like it's his phone and he's always using it. My guess is that by the end of the trial, there is going to be some evidence that seems to indicate other people using that phone.
I would imagine that you're probably right. And one of the indicators for that is every message on the phone is tied to the Apple ID of Sack Chaser. So it says young Sack Chaser at Gmail. That's kind of who the phone was registered to. I think what would be interesting is if the defense could say, yes, there's a lot of messages that Melly sent to this person and that person. But if you was to look at everything, if they were able to go in there and say, there was 500 messages in the Melly conversations, but there was 25 different conversations and there was 10,000 messages in those that weren't him.
Yeah.
The scale of it would look a lot different because they, at the end of the day, they all were living in the exact same house, going to the same studio. They've got the same career manager. It's possible that they all were operating off of one telephone when they were around each other. I can see that happen. And I just think to a jury to convince them that 4 guys would all be using the same phone, or even 2 guys would be using the same phone in the modern world, I think that the jury probably I don't even think they would probably see that as an option. They probably assume that each person would have their own phone.
A good lawyer is going to be able, in a closing argument, to look these jurors in the face and say, judge from your own experience in your life, in the life of your kids, your family, your friends. Have you ever seen anyone actually share a phone? I'm not going to say it can't be done, but it strains belief to say, oh yeah, they were just passing this phone around. That's not how it works.
It's one thing I would be interested in hearing, because I know what I think it was, but what do you think the most damaging piece of evidence is? Because for me, it was when the guy, I think he was an investigator, but at one point he was doing crime reconstruction, and he basically laid it out. He said, listen, we did gun residue test on the headrest. It showed that there was gunpowder on the back of the headrest, not the side of it, not the front of it, on the back of it, which means somebody shot close range from the back seat.
Yeah.
And then he said there was blood splatter on the roof, and that blood splatter on the roof some of it had dripped down onto the back of Bortland's shirt, not the side of his shirt, not the front of his shirt.
Yep.
And for me, when he painted that picture, I mean, it really just all clicks. There wouldn't be gunshot residue on the headrest if there wasn't a weapon fired close to the headrest. If it was fired from far away, there would be none. And if it was from Bortland, it would have been more on the side of the headrest, right? Yeah. He would have had blood on the side of his shoulder. And for me, I thought that was just so damaging when I heard him lay it out. So I'm interested to hear what you would think.
I don't hear you saying that proves that Melly did it. I hear you saying that proves that the gun was fired inside the car, right?
Right.
And we have Melly in that car, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we watched him get in.
Right.
We track his phone to near that location. It doesn't mean that he pulled the trigger. We don't know, like, if there was like a fight, if people got out. I mean, who knows what happened? But to me, that fact alone, while you say yes, it's very damning, it's not the whole, like, if that's all you had, I would say, I can't, I've got like 8% doubt. I can't convict him. But that is not all you have. And one of the things that came out in your recent video, I guess you were covering day 13, I'm thinking, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the end card on a video of a documentary that they put out where Melly presumably blesses this message that says 4 days after this filming, Melly and his friends were the victim of drive-by.
Yes, and that's exactly what it says, is that YNW Melly and his friends were the victim of a drive-by.
Okay, it's absolutely not true, and it's so not true that his lawyers won't even make that argument in the case. Dude, and the dancing around later that day, dapping up his Bortland,
Hours later, within hours of committing this crime, they're out shooting a music video. And I get that work is work, right? You got to go to work. Everybody's got to go to work. So I get it could have been unavoidable, but there's just something about within hours of something like that happening, at least in front of Bortland, we know it happened in front of him.
Yeah.
You know, it's everybody's debating if Melly seen it, but Bortland seemed to be in a good mood too while they were there.
Yeah.
And if it was me and I had just witnessed something like that, or even if I didn't and my friends were just involved in something like that, there's no way you're going to catch me out there smiling, dancing, handshaking with people, just having like a family barbecue when my friends just died, 5 hours before all of this.
And supposedly you could have died, because remember at the time they were telling everyone it was a drive-by. We could have died too. Beyond a reasonable doubt, it's not 100%. Right. And you can have people who argue what percentage it is, and it's not supposed to maybe be a percentage. But like in my mind, beyond a reasonable doubt is really close to 98, 99% chance. Okay. Maybe even higher than that. You don't have one fact in this case which gets you to 100. You have a bunch of facts which are worth like 15 points, and all total they add up to like 180. So like, he did it. But like, There's no one fact that you're like, oh, that's the one. That's the one. But the fact that he is saying to people, my friends and I were in a drive-by, it's so demonstrably false that it's bad.
Right. So I think we both can agree that the drive-by didn't happen.
Yes. I mean, I think his lawyers agree that it didn't happen.
Right. The evidence, I feel like, proved that the drive-by 100% didn't happen. You know what? Actually, here's what I think on it. I think that there's no one single fact that can tie Melly to this. They can't put the gun in his head. They can't show him pulling the trigger. And there's so much that gets analyzed, especially by somebody like me. I'm covering it front to back every day. I'm watching the whole 8-hour stream. Yep. And there's so much analysis that goes into it and looking at every single little detail. But I really do, and I believe this, at the end of the day, the jury, they're just regular people. They're not there to do the analysis. They're kind of almost being forced to be there. You get summoned to be on jury duty.
Yeah.
So it's not like they chose to be there. I chose to be covering this trial. So of course I'm examining every single piece of evidence that comes through. I want to hear all of it, but the jury, they may not want to hear all of it. And I think that even if they can't put that one single thing, I think that once so much is inserted into it, so much evidence and character traits are inserted into it, that I think that the jury just goes, I think he did it. Yeah. I don't think that they do all the analysis that we do. And we also see a lot of stuff that they don't see. We get to see all of the in-between, the things that are going to get excluded. We get to see it. The jury does not.
Some of the stuff that you and I have talked about and commented on where the prosecutor looks bad, that's not happening in front of the jury.
At the beginning, she had us going in the first half. I thought she was going to completely flop this case. Yeah. But they didn't see that. We seen that.
Yeah.
The jury has no idea she did a terrible job at the very beginning. They got to see it when it started getting good for the prosecution, when the evidence started adding up. The only bad that they really got to see was those first couple witnesses, which were terrible.
I got a theory for you. Okay, here's a theory. The prosecutor started with idiot witnesses who did poorly in order to get the jury engaged, so that the jury would be like, oh no, maybe this guy didn't do it. Now we're going to pay close attention and see maybe he's innocent. And then just bam, 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 all of the rest of the evidence has been really bad for Melly. I don't think that's what happened. It's just a theory, because those witnesses at the beginning were, dude, you said it, they were rough.
They were comically bad.
The
bullets go up and down, guy. I laughed. I legitimately laughed when he was testifying, which I don't like to do, because it's a serious trial and a serious case. But I could not believe that guy's testimony. I said, there's no way.
This week, basically an adverse witness was called by the prosecutor, another rapper, and he had the screen in front of him where you couldn't see his face most of the time.
Yeah, right? Trayvon Glass. Yeah.
What do you make as a layperson of his testimony, where he clearly does not want to be there? His testimony saying, Yeah, Melly changed clothes before I saw him next.
Me personally, I think it was useless. I think his whole testimony was relatively useless. If I'm a juror, I would have been so bored watching that guy up until he talked about his smoking habits. I'd have been so bored watching him. And while he did say, yes, Melly changed clothes at Fredo Banks' house, I think it all comes back to if they could put Melly in that car in the first place. If the jurors believe he was in that car and that he would have had blood on his clothes, then it's a significant fact. If they don't, then I don't think that it did much. And I personally don't think it had very much impact on the case at all, other than it just kind of showed the kind of people that Melly was associated with. And he was staring the prosecutor down, while he was, when they moved the screen, he had the look of death in his face.
That guy was Melly's friend back in 2018, number one, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Number two, he interacted with him right after the killings, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He did not want to be there. He didn't want to be in the courtroom.
It didn't look like it.
Yeah. He could have said, I don't remember what Melly was wearing. I don't know. He's saying under oath, yeah, this guy changed clothes. To me, as a lawyer, it's a big deal because it gives the jury the space to breathe and to think, oh, well, yeah, he didn't have blood spattered clothes for people to examine. But now we understand that he got rid of them. It's one thing to think that might have happened. It's another thing to have a witness kind of begrudgingly, but also confidently tell you, yeah, he changed clothes. So as a lawyer, I thought it was a bigger deal than you think it was.
Really?
Yeah.
See, of course, I'm just a layman. So there was one part of his testimony I found super interesting. And it was that at some point in the questioning, the prosecutor asked him about Melly's manager. She said, have you ever seen Track with a gun? And he said, maybe. I don't know, maybe. And she didn't follow up on it. Yeah. She just moved right past that question. Maybe isn't really an answer. If I was her, I would have wanted to move forward with more questions about that. What do you mean maybe you seen him with the gun? Because I think that rumor is, this hasn't been said in court, that 100K Track, which is his manager, people are saying is supposedly the one they think got rid of the guns when this all went down. So when she says, have you ever seen Track with a gun? And he says, maybe, and she just moved past it. I said, I wonder why she didn't push more into that question.
Well, okay, but every single time, almost every single time she pushed on him, things went sideways. They would object to her question as being leading or assuming facts not in evidence, et cetera, et cetera. They had an objection for basically everything. And the defense lawyers were right. It is really hard to examine a witness in a trial that does not want to be there if your goal is to find out information from them. Now, if you already have them pinned down and you can pepper them and you can basically just confront them with difficult facts and let them kind of try to talk their way out of it, that's great. I get it. But he was an adverse witness and he did not make it easy on her.
I've got a question, and this one I've seen in my comments a lot, and you can probably provide insight into this. We seen at the beginning of this trial, Melly's ex-girlfriend's mother testify.
Yes.
They had arrested her, put her on house arrest, the whole 9 yards to get her to give that testimony. And a lot of people have asked me, why haven't they done the exact same thing to Track and to Fredo Bang? Because they're clearly avoiding coming to court. They don't want to be there. And I know that the prosecution probably would not want to call Fredo Bang up anyways because of just how bad that could be for them, because he could say things that completely take their case off the table, right?
Yep.
One is that why they haven't called him, and two, could the defense not call him to do that if the prosecution didn't want to?
Yeah, those are great questions. And I'll tell you what I think the distinction is between girlfriend's mom, I can't remember her name, and Fredo and Track. She gave a sworn statement years ago that was helpful to the prosecution's case. Now, she wishes now that she had never made that statement. And so to kind of circling back on what I said earlier, they were able to confront her with this statement that she wishes that she never made. Just kind of poking her, just hitting her on that statement over and over. Well, if they don't have a statement like that from Fredo or from Track, they're not going to be there willingly helping them blow the whistle on Melly, then it's too risky. If I'm the defense, yeah, I mean, I'm going to seriously consider calling them. The problem is once they're on the stand, that is a tough spot for them to be in, because now the prosecution can go after them as an adverse witness and beat them up a little bit. I don't know if it works as a defense strategy, but isn't it weird that the prosecution might want to call these people, but they're so uncooperative that they won't call them? Like, is that how court works?
It's strange, right?
It's very, very strange. There's been the times in the trial when the prosecutor is explaining to the judge, oh yeah, we wanted so-and-so to testify, but they said they don't want to, so we're not going to make them be here. Or basically like, we can't get them here. But when they could send the sheriff to bring them in.
Right. They could, just like they did with his ex-girlfriend's mom.
Yes. The difference is if you don't have a statement to beat them up with, man, they're not going to do you any favors. When you drag someone into court, they're going to kick you as soon as they get inside the door.
Do you feel like at this point, I can tell you that I feel like personally, there's no way that Melly is going to beat this case, right? I think they're going to find him guilty.
Yep.
But just based on what we've seen, one, do you think they're going to find him guilty? And two, what are the chances of the death penalty being pulled off the table? Because I don't think he's going to get the death penalty. I don't think that they have enough to give him death.
I actually wanted to ask you the same question, because in my framework from a legal analysis, if you're telling me that the facts are A, B, C, and D, and from those facts, I find, yes, this man killed this other man, but I'm not 100% sure, so I'm not going to put him to death. That's a little irrational. I'm not saying it's wrong, but like an actual rational answer is, well, then maybe you don't think he actually did it. Like, maybe you do have some doubt.
What will happen to this case? And this is 100% not going to happen, because if I'm a defense attorney, there's no way I'm letting this happen. But what would happen if Melly at the end of this thing decided, you know what, for the first time through the whole thing, I'm going to give a statement? What if he got up there and he said, you know what, I actually did shoot my two friends and it was an accident. We were in a drive-by, or we thought a drive-by was happening. And so I was shooting back. I shot my two friends on accident. What would happen to this case if something like that happened?
The gun accidentally went off over and over and over. I couldn't get it to stop firing, so I got out of the car and went over to the side, and it just kept on shooting and shooting, and there was nothing I could do about it. So it's a great question. It actually varies from state to state, because you have to put the prosecution on notice of your affirmative defenses. And so if you're saying, yes, it happened, it was an accident, that's an affirmative defense, and you're going to need to disclose that ahead of time in most instances. The problem for him is he already made his bed. His lawyer stood up there and told the jury he wasn't there.
That's true. He made his case. Right?
Yeah.
He made his case. He said, I wasn't there. I had nothing to do with it. The phone ain't mine. None of it has anything to do with me. If the prosecution had tried Bortland first, because I really do feel like they have so much evidence against Bortland that 100% can prove guilt. He had gunshot residue. He's the one that took him to the hospital. If they had tried Bortland first, would it have helped their case against Melly?
Melly would walk if they tried Bortland first.
Really?
Yes, because of the gunshot residue, that's enough for Melly's jury, if Bortland's already convicted, to say, well, that guy could have killed both of them. And therefore, I can't say that I'm sure that Melly did it. But right now, they're not presented with those facts. So they don't know.
So would it work the same vice versa? If Melly is convicted of this, can Bortland make the same kind of argument?
No, and you know why, too. He's got the residue on him. He definitely pulled the trigger. The real question we should be asking is how much of Bortland's murder liability evidence, like the gunshot residue, like the blood spatter, all that stuff, how much are Melly's lawyers going to bring that out in this trial? I don't know gang culture and I don't know the gang rules, but if they're in a gang together and they have like this oath that they're just not going to blow the whistle on each other, and it's a violation of the code for Melly's lawyers to say Bortland did it, then maybe he can't make that argument.
In these last few days, we've seen messages from Melly to his mom, from Melly to supposedly Sack Chaser. In those messages, we seen Melly and Sack Chaser arguing, and there was a whole message that was almost like a best friend breakup, where he said, you know, you guys can have the house, you can have the car, you can have the Netflix accounts, you can have it all. I'm going to be in a hotel down the road. We need a break from each other. This is 2 months before the murders took place. As an attorney, how do you think that affects the jury to hear that argument? Because regardless, they get to hear the argument unfolding. There was tension between them. He was saying, I'm tired of y'all getting credit on my songs. I'm this, I'm that. I'm the CEO. You're just the face of this. Do you think that sways the jury's mind?
Dude, it's real bad for Melly. And here's why. During opening arguments, Melly's lawyer told the jury, basically, he's sad these guys got killed. These were his close friends. He would never have done it. He loved them. Man, the messages tell a different story. You didn't say this, but you obviously see these messages they're a Trojan horse. Like, we're showing these messages because we want you to know it's Melly's phone, but it isn't about that. It's about what's inside the messages. Again, it's not one piece of evidence. It's just like the entire scale. It's just another rock on the scale. And, you know, they're kind of breaking it. There's a lot of evidence against him.
Yeah, the defense has a hard job. They came out swinging and doing an exceptional job, I felt like. And I'm still impressed with them. I think for what they've been handed, they're doing as good as they can. I mean, they've got every objection in the world. They're case law after case law when they do. Yep. So they've got it down packed. They did a good job. I think they've got their hands tied on this one with everything that's been introduced. I'm interested to see what they have in the next, you know, on Monday when we come back. I'm sure that we'll be headed towards hearing what they've got to say, but I just think it's going to be so hard to dispute. As a member of the public, I think there's no way that the jury is not sitting there thinking that Melly is guilty.
I did that. Shh.
Right.
Dude, that's rough. He's talking about the death of his two business partners and friends. Is he joking that he did it? Because that didn't sound like a joke to me. Also, they didn't have a lot of jokes in their messages. It's all very serious and angry. Very serious.
And there's even one message where he said, I'm a monster, I'm evil, and basically told his mom to stay away from him because he didn't want to hurt her.
Do you think there was a specific tactic being used by the defense to say, we're sick, we need a day off?
100%. 100%.
So you think the trial's going very bad at that moment?
I think they want time. I think they want time and they need time. They got a recess. And somebody said, you know what? This is not going the way that we need it to go. We need 3 or 4 days.
The question that I thought you were going to ask me is, if there's a chance, based on what's happened so far, that Melly's lawyers go to the prosecutor and say, if you'll take the death penalty off the table, he'll plead guilty.
Do you think that they'll do that? I don't think that they would. I don't think they want him to plead guilty. I think that they're locked in it. I think they're locked in it to the end with their stance. So I didn't even think it would be a possibility for them to do that.
Yeah, I mean, so that's something they can do. And if you're the prosecution, of course, you're going to take that every day. Yes, they will take that. That's a huge win. It's fine. But as a part of that, he would also probably have to testify that Bortland also shot somebody, and that he probably is not willing to do that. And I think his lawyers are probably telling him right now, we think there's an 80 to 85% chance that you're getting convicted, and it might be higher than that. And we think there's like a 20 to 30% chance that you're getting the death penalty, and it might be lower than that. So he's got these things that he has to weigh these probabilities. And it's It's his life, and it's tough.
With his behavior, honestly, Josh, with the way that Melly's been behaving and just the character traits, again, that they've showed throughout this trial, I don't think that Melly cares if he gets convicted of it at this point. I'm not sure why. I'm sure that there's a reason why he probably feels that way, but he's in the court, he's smiling, he's having a good time. It's almost like it hasn't affected him. In the last few days, he's looked more tired than usual, but for the most part, Melly seems unbothered by the entire thing. When they show evidence, he laughs.
Hey, we got a dog on the channel. I've never had a dog on my channel before. What's your dog's name?
Her name's Nova. She's an American Bulldog. She's my baby. She's at the window. She can hear a UPS truck.
No, I'm glad to have you on the channel. Hey man, it's been so great having you on the channel. I know you're real busy. You got more videos to put out, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely, a lot.
Yeah.
I stay pretty busy. I appreciate you having me on here, Josh. It's always fun having a conversation with you.
Hey, thanks so much. I'm gonna keep watching all your videos, and I'm gonna tell everyone who watches my channel that you got to get over to KB Goes Live and watch his coverage of the Melly trial. If this topic interests you at all, you have to be there. He's covering it exactly the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on it every day. Josh, I appreciate you telling people to check me out. KB Goes Live on YouTube.
I'll see you soon. Take care. I'm glad that you watched till this far in the video, but I'm telling you, if you like the YNW Melly coverage on my channel or anywhere else, you got to go over to KB Goes Live and watch his videos. They're fantastic. He is really doing the work for anyone who's interested in that trial. Also, if you like YNW Melly content, then you should subscribe to this channel because I've got some videos about it right here, and I'm going to do some more as the trial progresses. Bye.